This is April 29th, 2014, and Abe and I are back in London, and we've had a really nice afternoon with Maria, and she's going to tell us a little bit about her endeavor.
Myself and a colleague Simon, we will be starting a voyage to the Middle East, and we're having a sailing boat, a small dinghy sailing boat with sponsorship to small grassroots campaigns that are in and around Syria, Lebanon, basically try and raise money and more than that, to raise awareness for what is actually happening in Syria and surrounding countries with regard to 9 million displaced civilians. So it's a huge crisis unfolding right now, and on top of that there's going to be droughts this summer. So it's more than the population of London. So if we took all the people in London plus 2 million more, took them outside London, put them all in tents and said to them, you stay here, you're not allowed to make any structures, it's temporary. So that's the situation that they're in. And then we put a huge heat wave and they've all got to rely on supplies from outside, and a lot of them would be things like nappies. I mean, what are you doing with children? You need bandages, you need sanitation. It's a huge major scale problem, and by and large in the media it's hardly being discussed. So, you know, we are witnessing the downfall of Syria. It has happened, it is happening, and it's only going to get worse. So what do? We need to highlight this situation. We're doing it by a campaign going to Turkey and then going on to Lebanon to meet some of the refugees and just basically highlight the appalling atrocities that are unfolding right now. And as I say, we haven't even started our journey yet, but things will get worse, and politically it's just been sidelined now as because all the focus is now turned onto the Ukraine. So that's the proposal, and that's hopefully what we'll be able to achieve. And that's what we're working for now.
This is the 11th of June. It's about 1:15, and we're at Parliament Square. There are two protests today. One is in support of the Syrian refugees, and the other one is to release the prisoners at Guantanamo Bay. Westminster Abbey in the background. This is Parliament Square.
So we're here because we're Syria Peace and Justice, which is a UK-based grassroots group which came together in October 2013 at a time when the government, the US and the UK and other European governments were only focused on should we invade, should we bash Assad, who do we arm on the rebels, who do we arm? It was only military solutions, so we were looking at peaceful solutions and peaceful demands. So there's a list of peaceful demands on the Syria Peace and Justice website, which we in December last year, we delivered or tried to deliver to the embassies of all of the countries involved in arming different sides in the Syrian conflict. And it's things like pushing for a ceasefire, pushing for a Syrian-led peace process, kind of stopping all the arms from flowing, the military aid flowing into Syria, and getting humanitarian aid flowing into Syria.
Hi, my name's Dan Wiesnick. I'm here with the Syria Peace and Justice Group outside the House of Parliament, and we're here with our pop-up so-called Syrian refugee camp. We're here just basically to keep the awareness going about the suffering of the people of Syria, whatever their ethnicity, and all the refugees from Syria, all of the internally displaced, millions of internally displaced, and the 2.7 million refugees who are mostly fled to countries neighbouring Syria: Jordan, Lebanon, Turkey, Iraq mainly. And I think it's just very saddening to see what's happening there and the ongoing conflicts, and to hear all the stories and how the children especially are suffering, being traumatized, how people are, up to 200,000 people are thought to have died just from lack of access to healthcare, in addition to the over 150,000 thought to have died directly due to the conflict. So in this day and age, it's just so sad to see. And well, I want to focus on what our government can do to help the situation. So really, I don't see military intervention as being something which could help. I think that would only aggravate the situation and make it worse ultimately. But we can do more on the humanitarian front. We can do more to support those who are working for peace in Syria and facilitate an inclusive peace process, rather than fueling the conflict through military training, supplying arms and so on. Also, after a lot of pressure from civil society groups and from political parties, the British government, after initially refusing to resettle any vulnerable refugees from Syria as part of the UN's resettlement programme, they finally caved in, and although they didn't sign up to the UN resettlement programme, they agreed that they would take a few hundred refugees for resettlement, which is a small step in the right direction. But Germany's already agreed to take thousands of refugees, and the US hasn't put a limit on the numbers involved, and other countries in Europe are doing a lot more than we are. So the least we can do, the very least we can do, if we really do care about the plight of the people of Syria, is to at least agree to take several thousand of the most vulnerable refugees, like traumatized children, those with particular healthcare needs, and also those with connections to the UK that might have family here. So, there's concrete steps which we can take, which don't involve dropping bombs on people and sending weapons, which we can be doing to help. And unfortunately, the anti-immigration climate and the xenophobia in the UK right now is at a high, with people concerned about immigrants flooding in from Eastern Europe, and then that's just spreading throughout society and shifting to the right, and people have very negative views about migrants. And economic migration isn't a bad thing. People migrate from country to country if the economic circumstances in their country are bad and they think they can make a better life for themselves elsewhere. You can't blame them for that. and certainly can't blame those fleeing conflict and persecution in other countries for wanting to come here. So, you know, the least we can do is extend a warm welcome to people fleeing conflict in Syria and other war-torn countries and fleeing persecution, and open the doors for them and do what we can to help them. And
Majid Al-Maghut. I'm from Syria, from Salamiyya, the middle of Syria. I'm a member of the Syria Peace and Justice Group. We're a group that wants to advocate peace and justice for the Syrian people, to end this dramatic war, to end the dictatorship, and to have democracy in Syria through non-violent, peaceful means. The refugees live in a very humiliating, bad condition that doesn't respect their dignity and their basic human rights.
I've just come back today from a demonstration in Parliament Square, and we held a sort of pop-up Syrian refugee camp just to highlight the seriousness of the situation, what is going on in Syria right now, and is ongoing for the last so many years, and goodness knows how long. These camps are seen as temporary, so a lot of people don't really see the urgency at the moment of what's happening there. But of course it would seem that possibly, unless people really start to put pressure on the governments, then these camps are going to be there for years and years and years, and under huge pressure, because obviously people are not living in their native country, they're refugees, they're living in now other people's countries, and that's put pressure on their countries too. So what we were trying to focus on today was to give a message to the children in Syria. There's children in these basement schools. Because of the bombings, they can't be in a regular school. Most of the schools have actually closed, and they're being run by the few teachers that have been left in Syria and who have stayed. It's not an ideal situation, so a lot of teachers, doctors, nurses have left the country. So you're finding a situation now of where the children get to a certain age and they are now becoming the teachers. So anyway, we've got a message, education is every child's right, so stop bombing of the schools, because this is what's happening. We want to show solidarity to the young people, because they are caught in the terrible situation that's befallen them. They had a home, they had a family, they had a school, a neighbourhood, a community. Now that's all gone. They have no focus, there is no university for them to carry on to. So we really want to support children in and around Syria, in all the neighbouring countries, the refugees, the stigma of being a refugee. You know, it's a very negative position to be in, and it can be very, very demoralising. Young people want to aspire just like any other youth of any country internationally, and so we want to give them hope that you're not forgotten, we are thinking about you, and so we have messages for you. Here's another one. This is in Arabic, and it's just to say that the children in Syria, we do love the children in Syria, and we need to save their lives, because there's got to be more effort put in to the situation that they're in, because we're going into the summer now. Now is June, heading towards July, and of course in Syria it's going to be a lot hotter than it is in the UK, and they're facing drought in that country. So there's going to be enormous pressure, and I can't begin to imagine how it would feel being there now. There's another message for Syria, Turkey, Lebanon, Iraq, Kuwait, Jordan. Yes, peace for Syria, aid for Syria, and not arms. So stop arming any group in the country. This is in Polish, Justice for Syria. Another message for Syria, German. But our message is, we want it to be a positive message, and there's a whole campaign on the internet from, I think it started from Israel to Iran. Iran actually responded back to Israel, which is, Israel, we love Iran. And Iran, young people actually wrote back on the web and took photos and said, and we love Israel. Because they are not our enemy, are they? Who is the enemy? Does anybody know who an enemy is? The majority of people do not know or can define or know who an enemy is. And yet, we're all dictated to have an enemy and to follow and not question it. And, we've come to a time now, we've got so much communication in this world, we do have to question these things, because ultimately the majority of people that suffer in the war are the people, the innocent, the children, the elderly people, the vulnerable. And it's time now that ordinary people just say, no, we won't be a party to this, we need to stop. And that's not just in the UK, it's internationally, all over the world. French acts for peace in Syria. There's not just peace in Syria, it's acting, doing something about it. And this is a message to Syrian people. We do care. Internationally, people do care about you. And we want to do something for you. Ordinary people, grassroots people, Polish one, humanitarian aid, not arms. Polish. Justice for Syria. It does matter, if any country or any person suffers unjustly in this world, then we all suffer. If we're aware of it, then we all suffer. And we're all responsible at some point to say something about it. This is Tamil. Message was, because the Tamils have just undergone a genocide, they've suffered. They've lost, I think it was 170,000 people. They're still struggling in their country now. So this message was from a Tamil refugee, and he wrote, we want freedom for the Syrian people. Peace and justice for all Syrians, whoever they are, wherever they are, whatever community, whatever background, whatever education, whatever religion. Ultimately, that is the ultimate goal for any society, is to have peace and to have justice and to have rights and freedoms. Situation coming up now, in the sense that tomorrow, which it will be the 12th of June 2014, tomorrow is the start of the World Cup in Brazil. So that now will be a huge mass media coverage every night, or virtually 24 hours a day. And so what's going on in Syria and different parts of the world is going to be put way back on the back burner. And that's how it works. That is how it works, and the focus will be gone completely. A lot of people are struggling with how to support Syria, because we have so much negative press here of what's anything to do that's linked with Syria is seen now as very radical, and so anybody that goes to Syria and comes back is liable for arrest in this country, because they're thinking that they've come back radicalised and there possibly might be a danger. Also, what's happened recently, we've now introduced secret courts into this country. So technically, somebody could be arrested, charged, go to court, but we don't know what they were charged for. We don't know where they are, when the court sits. We don't know anything, and we don't know what happens. This is now UK 2014. Another thing on the news now, yesterday, Mayor Boris Johnson, he's just purchased for London, first time ever, 3, not 1, not 2, 3 water cannon. So, that's a great concern, because, to date we've managed very well without water cannon. And what is it they're expecting? It's almost like they're setting the scene, and then we have to play to it, if you like, because we've never had this situation before. They do expect, I think, some sort of civil unrest. We had taxi drivers, I think you might have noticed in the footage, they were on strike today, if you like, a protest around Parliament Square, because their jobs are being threatened. We've had axing, if you like, across the board of police and police stations closing, the fire brigade service, fire stations closing within London. in very crucial areas. We've had local councils closing libraries. We've got major austerity cuts in this country. So many services are being cut. On the news yesterday, it was said that people in their late 70s, 80s are now being told by a government department that they can no longer access certain finances that are available to them, allowances. They now have to do it by going on the web. Go on the web. They don't have a lot of them don't want to do that. There's no way they want to do that, and actually, why should they? But that's what they're being told. It's a new policy. Yeah, that's the very same generation that fought in Normandy and laid their lives on their line and saw their fellow countrymen possibly die or be seriously injured. If they then survived in their late 70s, 80s, they're now being told, you were a hero then, but this week things have changed. We've got to cut down on our finances. We've got to make cuts. You've now got to go on a website. A lot of people are not going to be able to have access to computers. So this is how bizarre life is in this country at the moment. Everything is sort of one extreme or another. We have a good country. It's peaceful right now. You can, wherever, if I was to take you within any distance, it would be peaceful. I would feel safe. But things are changing in this country, and the big worry is that they're trying to, they're saying about radicalisation in the schools, and they called it the Trojan horse within the schools, certain schools, and school inspections, and they're worried about people being, becoming extremists within our own country. But I just don't see the evidence of it myself. There'll always be extremists in everything. There's always dangers. There will always be people who don't conform, don't comply, want to do things their way, and if people get in their way, then they want them out their way, if you like, or there'll always be that problem. But generally, I think we don't want to create that, and that's the situation we're finding. This situation seems to be set up now, putting pressure on everybody to a breaking point, and then if people react, then they'll be ready with these water cannons, and I think they even said about rubber bullets, but we haven't heard of that lately.